So here we are looking at the, we have a blackboard here in the Saltbox, and this is giving you some idea of where we intend to go with electrifying the building. We've had a lot of ideas around this, working with the town. There's been the idea of bringing electricity right in from the street, which we may do later in the game with the second building, which I'm going to talk to you about. But for the Saltbox, we've decided it'd be a lot better, since it's an environmental research center, if we could go independent with solar. So what we're looking to do is to set up a solar panel, which would be about $150 because they become so inexpensive. This is one of the things that people have complained about with solar energy. They've said solar energy is too expensive. In the last 8 years, the cost of solar panel production has literally bottomed out. So you can do independent projects and not be dependent upon the power company to hook up your solar. So we could purchase a solar panel, we could put in a mount, an inverter, batteries, cables, a charge controller, all of this for about $1,300. That would run all of our outlets, our sconce lights, our electric lights, and still have power enough for our computer and our microscope, which would be upstairs, and a couple of sconces outside the building. As it stands now, it's kind of an experiment because the stuff that we're doing here relates entirely on what do we have in the way of solar exposure. And we have a landfill cap behind us across the road, which gives us a certain amount of exposure, but there's a ridge beyond it to the east. So we don't have the best morning sun, but through the arc of the day into the afternoon we have a pretty good exposure. Plus we've taken down some trees over there, which is a part of the OU2 cleanup that Ford's been doing. So we hope to make this little building exemplary for independent solar harvesting, you could say, independent solar energy. And the second building looks sort of like this. It's a barn that we're looking to do, and this is the floor plan for it, is a Dutch barn. So when we go outside I can indicate where that is. But the Dutch barn, and this little thing here is a model of it. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but we've built a model so far. We haven't built the whole barn yet. The Dutch barn is about twice the size of the Saltbox. So the Saltbox is approximately 24 by 25 footprints, about 24 by 25 feet. The Dutch barn is approximately twice that, something like 38 by 42, but it's pretty much twice that. We have an old Dutch barn, over 200-year-old timbers from a Dutch barn that was here in Rockland County, a little further over near the Pascack River at the time, closer to Nanuet, but it's been salvaged, just the framing. And we hope to put that together on the property, a little north of the Saltbox. And this would be the front entranceway, and it would include a bath, because right now we're still roughing it up here, me and my students, but we would have an actual bath, running water, and then stairs that would go to a loft, and then back of the stairs we would have a lab. Because we do a lot of experiments here, only we're limited because we don't have the water or the electricity to work with as it is now. So we would put in a lab, and then on this side we'd have a separate small entrance and a full shop. We currently have a wood shop down in a warehouse. It'd be nice to have one here. A lot of the work that we do here is hand tools. And so we sort of emulate the 19th century persona by working with hand tools and recovered wood. And so we'd be able to have space in here for the recovered wood that we pick up from other old buildings that are being lost and taken down or just deteriorating here around the town of Ramapo. So we're trying to save that stuff and use that stuff toward creating this larger structure here, the Dutch barn, and it would be fitting in terms of complementary to the Saltbox up here on Torn Valley Road. But also being a larger building, we could have slightly larger events because we'd have space in here. In fact, we could have a barn dance, which would be a lot of fun. I know there are some people who think that's something out of history. Well, it is. It is something out of history, and it's a continuous history, and there's a lot of places in this country where we still have them. When I was a boy, I actually went to a few barn dances before Rockland became the vast suburban wasteland it appears to be today. Well, we can recover those ideas. And the other side of that is, when you go into the barn, these little squares here are windows, because for the public they'd be able to look through the windows and see what sort of lab work and ecological studies are being done in the lab, what sort of shop work and things that are being built by hand over in the shop. So again, it would further the mission of the idea of a learning center, an environmental research center, a learning center, and all of this I think is terribly important from the perspective of this area is a wasteland. It's been dumped on. We don't just have a Superfund cap behind us, but we have paint sludge. Probably about, I would say, another 40,000 tons possibly, just beyond the Saltbox going that way. And we're getting it cleaned up. And what gets it cleaned up, what gets it done, initiates with community, with people taking an interest, learning about a thing, learning how it was done poorly and how it can be corrected, how it can be restored. And that community connects to the policy end of things, the local government. So politicians take an interest when they see people taking an interest. And then there's a happy coalition of politicians and individuals. So for example, somebody like Christopher St. Lawrence, the town supervisor, recognizes the value of this, not just in terms of the value of taking care of your water, which is terribly important, the value of cleaning up a watershed, which is terribly important, and you're talking generations to come will benefit from that, but the value of establishing a healing place for community where people can come together, they can share their stories, and they can build something. And that's how the barn will get built, by a lot of people working together. That's how this building got built. I often tell people, the Saltbox is kid-built. I don't really mean little kids, though in the summer we had a camp here, and we had little kids and we were teaching them to hammer. But I mean kids of all ages, because there's a funness to this kind of work, and it's very constructive for them to participate that way. So that's our future. That's our barn, and more recently this year we're going to be putting in the solar.